Taurus, welcome to a video on the transit of Jupiter in the sign of Capricorn from December 2nd, 2019 until December 18th of 2020. I'm Raina. This is going to be a great transit for you, I feel, because Jupiter is going to be transiting your ninth house, which is the house that it rules. So that is really great in and of itself, or auspicious, if you will. And Jupiter is the planet of luck, and as well as making things bigger that it touches. So in the ninth house that it rules, these tend to be in the area of ideas, okay? Because the ninth house is a mental house, and therefore it's associated with the life of the mind. In the case of the ninth versus the third house, which is another mental house and the opposite sign of Gemini, the ninth house is ruled by Sag. And this I'm talking about in the universal chart. In your particular chart, it's ruled by Capricorn. So what's interesting about this in general is that one of the aspects of the ninth house is higher education. So we're talking about university level learning or teaching, teaching too. And because this is your ninth house, and I'm talking about whether or not you have this type of transit in it, just because it's on the cusp of your ninth house, you have a tendency to look at higher education in terms of career promotion. So that's how we could possibly interpret your view of higher education, because you have Capricorn there. So there's a sense of you looking at the attainment of a degree, for instance, as not just in order to, well, no, it could be that too. It could be about self-improvement. I would put that in the ninth house as well. But I do feel like there's a strong emphasis on career advancement. And so because you're an earth sign, you're looking for those tangible things like the piece of paper, the diploma, and that to make you feel like you've put your money into something and you're getting something back. So right now you have some heavy hitters in that ninth house. You have Saturn there. Saturn has been there for a couple of years. And you have, well, yeah, I think, like December of 2017, I guess. And it will be leaving this sector in 2020. I believe it's right around the Aries new moon. It's like right after that. So you're going to have several more months of Saturn in this house. But Pluto has been hanging out since 2008. One thing before I continue, I say this on a regular basis. This is definitely a general reading. There's a reason why you have to provide your time of birth when you're getting your natal chart constructed, because it's a very precise thing. And it can totally change the house placements, especially since, modern astrologers tend to use the unequal house system. So it's not 30-30-30 in most, charts with that system. And therefore it's going to be, it depends on, where your cusp is, how it's going to shake out for you in terms of the timing of these transits. But it can give you an overview, and that's better than nothing. So I always feel compelled to say that, because it's really not truly accurate because of the that fact of the individual charts. But, you can still find something important in here. And if you know your particular chart, you know where everything is, and you know if it's going to affect one house versus the other. But in general, just looking at it from the universal perspective, Pluto in here since 2008 has really kind of reshaped your views on God. I have Taurus rising, and Pluto is currently in my ninth house, and that is so true. I mean, I can tell you that that's true because as somebody who has always considered myself to be a spiritual person, as far as I can remember, but not necessarily, hung up on one religion versus another, I really have, changed a lot of my views. And the ninth house to me could be even like organized religion, of just like really seeing through a lot of things, which doesn't negate the existence of God, though. See, and the ninth house is the house of philosophy. The higher mind can include, the way that you think about your life, which I think is so important. I can't even wrap my brain around not asking the bigger questions in life and just kind of going through the motions, because it seems like an alternate universe in an ironic way. I mean, everything seems to be so meaningful to me that seems very meaningless. The mundane, daily things. So you may be, if you were that type of person, Taurus, where you tended to be more of the materialistic person, the lower expression of Taurus, you may have really opened your eyes. Maybe you have had an ascension experience or the feeling of a spiritual awakening, let's put it that way, and that has made you feel like, wow, this is real stuff. And I'm so happy that I, have this in my life, because I was living a lot less intentionally before, and now I feel like I'm really living in an intentional way. So it's just very interesting that, Pluto has the power to transform people's kind of like attitudes. But what can happen is that in some cases you may need, or there may be some kind of experience that is kind of like the tower in the tarot. And I can't remember, I know that I don't think that Pluto is associated with the Tower card, which I think it should be in a lot of ways. But that idea of tearing something down to make something, to bring about something better, I feel strongly about that, about that being such an important thing. So, by the way, out of curiosity, I just looked up something concerning the Tower card, and it is associated with Mars, generally speaking, the god of war, and that sense of it's the idea of the will, but when you're kind of willful, sometimes something from the outside has to come in to humble you and to make you bow to something else, where it's like, not my will, but thy will. But I like this one person. I don't know who she is. The Whispering Tarot by Liz Hazel. I don't know if it's her own set of cards or her book. And she mentions Mars, but she says Pluto and Uranus are also used. Abrupt or unexpected event, upheavals, rude surprises, accidents, inexorable change, erupting awareness, breakthroughs, and breakdowns. And so it's funny that she mentions Uranus and Pluto, because yes, the suddenness of Uranus, but Pluto, that idea of you having certain beliefs that need to be torn down. But how can you tear down beliefs? Or how do you get people to kind of question their beliefs? Sometimes it's through direct experiences. So this is one of those situations where I feel like, people get very nervous when they see the Tower card, or when they have Pluto in a certain house, like, oh my God, I'm going to have this calamity. When in fact, I think that if you're the type of person who is not afraid to change, who can accept new information coming to you, that you will weather any storm if any kind of presents itself, and perhaps your version of Pluto will simply be major transformation without having to have calamity attached to it. And that's the important thing. So the ninth house can also be the house of long distance travel. So with Jupiter here, and being the ruler of this house naturally, this can be very favorable for you. In other words, it can give you a lot of, it's not just good luck, but that sense of becoming more of who you are. That's to me what expansion really means, is that, more well-rounded, more having the ability to expose yourself more to life instead of just being kind of narrow, the widening of your life. And that's kind of like one of the whole points of travel, is to kind of put you physically into a space that is very different from what you're used to. And you learn that there's not just one way to live. There's not one language. There's not one anything. And Taurus people tend to have their creature comforts, but their little routines, their habits, and their preferences. My father was a Taurus, and he used to love just very few things, I think, to eat. Like, he loved cheeseburgers, he loves certain things, but he didn't necessarily crave variety all that much. And I think a lot of Taurians can attest to that. Although, if you have inner planets in Gemini, you may be much more adventurous, if you have like Mars in Gemini, or different things, moon signs that crave change, like moon in Sagittarius or Gemini. But it's just funny, so that can widen your scope in the next year. Long distance travel with Jupiter there, you may get the opportunity, maybe even to be able to afford it. And the fact that Pluto is here can make you that much more obsessed with the idea of being able to go somewhere else. Maybe this has been a long time thing that you've wanted, and now you'll finally be able to do it, because Saturn may have put some obstacles in your way the last couple of years. And this may even be for some of you who are enrolled in college, that you want to travel abroad, or study abroad, I should say. And that certainly would be wonderful if you're presented the opportunity. Or even if you go after it yourself, you may find that the doors open more easily. Now, especially when Saturn leaves this sector around March. I don't have the ephemeris in front of me. I believe it's around March 24th when Saturn, when Saturn leaves the ninth house. So from March or April onwards, you may even get more of a green light to be able to travel and to be able to fulfill some of the goals of the ninth house that right now, with Saturn there, you may be very methodical about, but you may have to really go slowly. Saturn is about delays, and be thorough. And like, for instance, if you are trying to graduate college or something like that, and Saturn is there, that can be good for really being motivated to do it because you feel like it's going to stabilize your future. And so it's not a problem with being motivated, being disciplined and organized, but perhaps there are still some sort of delays or blockages that prevent you from completing it. I think Jupiter will make that happen. And the other thing, too, I want to talk about is there's a couple of conjunctions between Jupiter and Pluto and in this ninth house. The ninth house, by the way, is also the study of God, or, just anything connected to religion. And for those of you Taurians, this can be a great time if you're interested in being like a yoga teacher, for instance. Something where you are teaching in addition to teaching the asanas or the yogic postures, but you're teaching people the philosophy of yoga. And this can, maybe you get introduced to yoga and this opens up your mind. Again, expansion does not just come in one form. It can be in your mental outlook. It can, and it's kind of funny because some people, some Taurians may say, well, what is this really going to do for me? Because that's all abstract. If it's something mental, you can't really measure how much I'm gaining from this. And that's precisely it. You ruled the second house of earned income, so we're talking about money, cold hard cash. We're talking about possessions. Second house can be self-esteem, and that's immeasurable. But in terms of like that tangible goods, okay? And that's where your kind of like mind may go. But you know what? That's precisely why this is so important, because you can't measure it. It's not finite. And, everything doesn't have a price tag. So this kind of encapsulates the whole idea of what is the value of an education? What is the value, and I'm talking about a higher education, what is the value of developing a spiritual practice? It has so many, it has such a value to it that transcends the, material concerns. Because there are plenty of people out here making a lot of money and they are depressed, they're miserable. And if you have a sense of life that is very positive, that is very hopeful, and that looks at life from a philosophical perspective, and therefore you're able to kind of put things in their proper place and not overreact when certain things happen, that is a priceless gift. And you may get this gift in the coming year, Taurus. So please, keep your mind open for any influences that come your way that relate to this. When Jupiter and Pluto form a conjunction, one of them is going to be in April. It's funny because I had my one of the articles said April 5th, but that's only one of the dates when it's at exactly 24 degrees of whatchamacallit, where Jupiter is 24 degrees of Capricorn in exact conjunction with 24 degrees Pluto in Capricorn. So this is going to be the end of March 29th until the 5th of April. I really feel that for all of us, the last portion of March is going to be like a pivotal point in the year, because there's, you have Saturn, which has been in one sign for 2 years, going into another, leaving its own sign and going into Aquarius. And then, it's really, I made this connection in my mind when I was doing another of these readings last night, where Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So you have Saturn going into Aquarius, and you also have the fact that Uranus is currently in Taurus, in your sign. So the reason I'm making that connection is because to me, there's a lot of revolutionary energy of Aquarius and its ruler Uranus in signs that to me are more conservative, Taurus and Capricorn. And the reason I like this, even though it's kind of an odd combination, I feel that what it does is it takes our mundane structures, the government, our monetary system, which I would say with Uranus and Taurus, but even with Pluto and Capricorn, same, and I'm not talking about Pluto per se right now, but just talking about all of this restructuring, what we can call it at the broadest level of government, of healthcare, of education. All of these systems are kind of undergoing like radical change. With Pluto in Capricorn, it's in all of, it could be the monetary system, but also the governments for sure, and things like that. But with Uranus and Taurus, specifically with the currency. So especially with electronic currency, that may be something that is going to be ratcheting up. I'm sure a lot of us are already using debit cards almost exclusively these days. From what I can see, when people go to pay, most people are not using cash anymore. And I mean, I don't know if we're going to go to a cashless society, but there are cashless businesses, for sure, where you can't pay in cash. And how the reason I'm saying this to you, Taurus, is because you rule this area with the currency. And the point being that you're undergoing these same radical shifts on the personal level as the collective is with Uranus and Taurus. So I feel that Jupiter in this ninth house for you is just more of the same, is helping you to grow. And then with the Jupiter Pluto conjunction, it becomes even more powerful, bigger and more powerful, whether it's your urges to do these things or whether if it's the manifestation of them. I think manifestation is very good because this is forming a trine to your first house of the self, whether we're talking about the sun or the rising sign. So that can be very good for the trine takes the least effort to manifest whatever it is. We're talking about the self, and we're talking about the ninth house, which can also be described as your your mindset, your outlook, your philosophy. All of that is important in determining what you choose in life. So that can be upgraded when Jupiter comes in, because you might have experienced a little bit of pessimism with Saturn in this house accompanied by Pluto. I mean, these are not warm and fuzzy energies. They're more restrictive, cold, pessimistic, disruptive than they are something that is benign, benevolent, and supportive, okay, and expansive. Saturn is restrictive. So Saturn in the ninth house isn't really that fun, isn't really that doesn't feel really that hopeful or positive. It's more pragmatic than positive. So I think that when Saturn leaves the building in late March, that you may you Taurians may breathe a collective sigh of relief and say, wow, now I still have Pluto here, but at least I have Jupiter. And Pluto, it does kind of bring up, it dredges up stuff maybe from the past that you have not really dealt with, but I don't feel like it's necessarily negating anything. It's actually purifying yourself. Now, in October, is it October or November? I guess it looks to me like it's November of 2020 when it's really happening. And let's see here. Around the 8th of November to the 13th of November 2020, Jupiter and Pluto at an exact 22-degree conjunction in that ninth house. But even when it goes to the 23-degree mark or 24 degrees, it's going to be within 1 to 2 degrees. Really, 1 degree. Pluto is going to go to the 23-degree mark in the month of November 2020. So that's still a conjunction. And the point being that this is a very powerful combination for you to assert yourself. If you're a writer, Taurus, this can be great for publishing things and maybe having like some kind of a fluke, even though I don't really believe in just kind of random luck. I think that everything is happening for a reason. But if you want to look at it like that, where you publish a book, maybe you can even self-publish, and the thing takes off like a rocket. So the point being that even in that particular circumstance, you would have to actually write a book and publish it. It's not a question of just having it just randomly become popular sitting, on a shelf in your home or, in your memory card. It's really something that you have to put out there. And that means sticking your neck out a little bit. And that's why it's so important that we embrace this idea of being co-creators, that we're not just like, okay, what's going to happen to me in the next year, but that we say, okay, what do I have to do to make this happen? But yeah, that's what I have for you, Taurus. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you would like a more personalized look at when these transits and other transits are going to be happening for you, I have that type of reading for the next 12 months. Maybe you could just say for 2020, since we're almost at the end of the year. And likewise, I have just that type of thing, but I also have the longer version that looks at your natal placements, which really affect the kind of career choice you might have. Certain things with destiny, like where you may end up with the North Node, how that plays into your either career choices or just what it is that you want to do, what you feel called to do. And sometimes it can be very validating to have somebody that doesn't know you saying, yes, you are, you do have this ability to be an artist or something. And even if you feel like you have not been supported in that by other people, just know that this is part of your path. And I'm using artists because a lot of times they're the ones that tend not to get that kind of support. Okay, well, good luck to you, and thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.